Section 15 of the Golden Gems of Life. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Raj. The Golden Gems of Life by Emory, Adams, Allen and S.C. Furgeson. Section number 15, Perseverance. It is only by reflection that we derive a just appreciation of the value of perseverance. When we see how much can be accomplished in any given direction by the man or woman of but average ability who resolutely perseveres in the course of action adopted as the ruling purpose of their lives, we then arrive at a just estimate of the value of perseverance as a factor in success. The old fable of the hare and the tortoise only exemplifies a truth which we are all ready to admit when we once stop to admire those stupendous works of nature and art which proclaim in no uncertain tones the triumph of perseverance. All the performances of human art at which we look with praise or wonder are instances of the resistless force of perseverance. It is by this that the quarry becomes a pyramid. It is by this the Colosseum of Rome was built, and this it was that enclosed in adamant the Chinese Empire. One man's individual exertion seems to go for nothing. If a person were to compare the result of one man's work with the general design and last result, he would be overwhelmed by the sense of their disproportion. Yet these petty operations, incessantly continued, in time surmount the greatest difficulties. Mountains are elevated and oceans bounded by the slender force of human beings. How many men who have won well-nigh imperishable renown in the world of literature, science, or art, owe all their greatness to persevering efforts? How many of those whom the world calls geniuses can exclaim with Newton that they owe all their greatness to persevering efforts, and whatever they may have been able to accomplish more than ordinary has been solely by virtue of perseverance? They were the sons of unremitting industry and toil. They were once as weak and helpless as any of us, once as destitute of wisdom and power as an infant. Once the very alphabet of that language which they have wielded with such magic effect was unknown to them. They toil long to learn it, to get its sounds, understand its deeper fancies, and longer still to obtain the secret of its highest charm and mightiest power, and yet even longer for those living glorious thoughts which they bade it bear to an astonished and admiring world. Their characters, which are now given to the world and will be to millions yet unborn as patterns of greatness and goodness, were made by that untiring perseverance which marked their whole lives. From childhood to age, they knew no such word as fail. Defeat only gave them power. Difficulty only taught them the necessity of redoubled exertions. Dangers gave them courage, and the sight of great labors inspired in them corresponding exertions. Their success has been wrought out by persevering industry. It has been said by shrewd observers that successful men owe more to their perseverance than to their natural powers, their friends, or the favorable circumstances around them. Genius will falter by the side of labor. Great powers will give place to great industry. Talents are desirable, but perseverance is more so. It will make mental powers, or at least strengthen those already made. This should teach a great lesson of patience to those who are so nearly ready to sink in despair and have grown weary in their strivings for better things. For one who faints not, but resolutely takes up the work of life and perseveringly continues his exertion, it is possible for him to reach almost any height to which his ambition may point. Some of the great works of literature in which are stored away great masses of information are the results of persevering efforts before which many minds would have quailed. Gibbon consumed 19 years in writing his masterpiece. How many would have had the courage to persevere that length of time, though certain of success at last? Courage, when combined with energy and perseverance, will overcome difficulties apparently insurmountable. Perseverance, working in the right direction and when steadily practiced, even by the most humble, will rarely fail of its reward. It inspires in the minds of all fair-minded people a friendly feeling. Who will not befriend the persevering, energetic youth, the fearless man of industry? Who is not a friend to him who is a friend to himself? He who perseveres in business amidst hardships and discouragements will always find ready and generous friends in time of need. He who will persevere in a course of wisdom, rectitude, and benevolence is sure to gather round him friends who will be true and faithful. Go to the men of business, of worth, of influence, and ask them who shall have their confidence and support. They'll tell you, the men who falter not by the wayside, who toil on in their calling against every barrier, whose eyes are upward, and whose motto is Excelsior. These are the men to whom they give their confidence. But they shun the lazy, the indolent, the fearful, and faltering. They would as soon trust the wind as such men. If you would win friends, be steady and true to yourself. Be the unfailing friend of your own purposes. Stand by your own character, and others will come to your aid. Almost every portion of the earth teems with works which show what man has been able to effect in the physical world by means of perseverance. Calculate, if you can, the efforts required to build the pyramids of Egypt. Can you conceive of a more enduring monument to the triumph of perseverance than that? Look at nature. She has 1,000 voices teaching lessons of perseverance. The lofty mountains are wearing down by slow degrees. The ocean is gradually but surely filling up by deposits from its 1,000 rivers and by the labors of a little insect so small as to be almost invisible to the naked eye. Every shower that sweeps over the surface of the country tends to bring the hills and the mountains to the level of the plains. Nature has but one lesson on this subject, and that is persevere. More depends upon active perseverance than upon genius. Says a common sense author upon this subject, genius unexerted is no more genius than a bushel of acorns is a forest of oaks. There may be epics in men's brains, just as there are oaks in acorns. But the tree and the book must come out before we can measure them. Firmness of purpose is one of the most necessary sinews of character and one of the best instruments of success. Without it, genius wastes its efforts in a maze of inconsistencies. It gives power to weakness and opens to poverty the world's mark. It spreads fertility over the barren landscape and bids the choicest fruits and flowers spring up and flourish in the desert abode. There is perhaps nothing more conducive to success in any important and difficult undertaking than a firm, steady, unremitting spirit. In seasons of distress and difficulty, to abandon ourselves to dejection is evidence of a weak mind. Opposing circumstances often create strength, both mental and physical. Opposition gives us greater power of resistance. To overcome one barrier gives us greater ability to overcome the next. It is cowardice to grumble about circumstances. Instead of sinking under trouble, it becomes us in the evil day with perseverance to maintain our part, to bear up against the storm, to have recourse to those advantages which in the worst of times are always left to integrity and virtue, and never to give up the hope that better days may come.
It is wonderful to see what miracles a resolute and unyielding will can achieve. Before its irresistible energy, the most formidable obstacles become as cobweb barriers in the path. Difficulties, the terrors of which cause the irresolute to sink back with dismay, provoke from the man of lofty determination only a smile. The whole history of our race, all nature, indeed, teems with examples to show what wonders may be accomplished by resolute perseverance and patient toil. How many there are who, thinking of the immense amount of work lying between them and the object of their desires, are almost ready to give up in despair. But do they not, when they view the work thus in mass, forget that there is time enough, if only rightly improved, to suffice for each effort? One step after another, perseveringly continued, will enable you to arrive at your journey's end, however long it may be. It is only when you come to reckon up the aggregate number of steps that you are ready to sink under a feeling of despair. But you are not required to take them all at once. There is an allotted time for each individual step. Thus, in viewing any work that you may have marked out in life, only remember that you are not obliged to do the work all at once, that the regular daily portions performed quietly and systematically day after day will enable you to achieve almost any desired result. When we reflect on the wonderful results that perseverance has accomplished, we are led to believe that the man who wills, resolves, and perseveres can do almost anything. Everyone, then, regardless of his condition in life, should set his aim high and resolve to remit no labor necessary for its realization, but cheerfully take up the trials and burdens that life has in store for him, and carry them forward, be the discouragements what they may, to a glorious consummation. Only learn to carry a thing through in all of its details, and you have measured the secret of success. Only learn to persevere in carrying out any plan of work which an enlightened judgment decides is the best, and you will force life to yield you its grandest triumphs. There is almost no limit to what you can achieve if you thus govern your actions and make all your exertions contribute to the fulfilling of some great purpose of life, which you took up with a brave heart and with a determination to persevere therein until success crowns your efforts.
End of section number 15, Perseverance. Recording by Raj.
Section 16 of the Golden Gems of Life. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recorded by Ron Broach. The Golden Gems of Life by Emory Adams Allen and S. C. Furgeson. Section 16. Enterprise. Closely allied with the qualities of self-reliance and energy is that characteristic quality which so much conduces to success in life and is generally expressed by the word enterprise. It is distinct from energy inasmuch as it is constantly active in discovering new fields for energy to exert itself in. We are familiar with examples of men who have won fortunes or gained renown, not because they pursued better or wiser courses, but because of some originality in their aims and methods by which they were enabled to command the attention of the busy world long enough to wrest from it the special object of their choice. True enterprise is constantly on the alert to discover some new want of society, some fertile source of profit or honor, some unexplored field of business, and is ready to supply the one or to take advantage of the other. It is nearly an indispensable element in these days of fierce competition. Every avenue of business is crowded, and as soon as it is known that one party has made a success by one method, there are scores of eager aspirants ready to try the successful plan, so that straightway it, too, ceases to be unique, and in becoming common loses the power it formerly possessed of compelling success. Hence the latecomers in the field are doomed to failure, while they may at the same time be better fitted for the peculiar work in hand. What they should do is aim at success by new plans and methods. Everyone knows the enthusiastic glow that animates the whole being of him who feels the ardor of an explorer, who surmounts difficulties by and before unthought-of expedients, who plans and projects enterprises that had previously escaped the active minds of his fellow men. It is by virtue of this very enthusiasm that the man of enterprise, who is so ready to adopt new measures, plans, and projects, is enabled to carry into his business or profession an energy and inspiration which is totally lacking on the part of those who are followers. Hence the latter ofttimes fail of success which their talents might almost be said to have promised them. Therefore, those who enter the list to win life's battles must expect, if they would reach their goal, to wage the fight not only by the old methods, but by the new. To use only those tactics which are sanctioned by usage is to invite defeat. Throw open the windows of your mind to new ideas, and keep at least abreast of the times, and, if possible, ahead of them. Nothing is more fatal to self-advancement than a stupid conservatism or a servile imitation. The days when a man could get rich by plodding on without enterprise and without taxing his brain have gone by. Mere industry and economy are not enough. There must be intelligence and original thought. Whatever your calling, inventiveness, adaptability, promptness of decision must direct and utilize your force. And if you do not find markets, you must make them. In business, you need not know many books, but you must know your trade and men. You may be slow at logic, but you must dart at chances. You may stick to your groove in politics, but in your business, you must switch into new tracks and shape yourself to every exigency. We emphasize this matter because in no country is the red tapist out of place as here. Every calling is filled with bold, keen, subtle-witted men, fertile in expedients and devices, who are perpetually inventing new ways of buying cheaply, underselling, or attracting custom, and the man who sticks doggedly to the old-fashioned methods, who runs in a perpetual rut, will find himself outstripped in the race of life if he is not stranded on the sands of popular indifference. Keep then your eyes open and your wits about you, and you may distance all competitors. But if you ignore all new methods, you will find yourself like a lugger contending with an ocean steamer. It is enterprise that oils the wheels of energy and industry. Industry gathers together, with a frugal hand, the means whereby we are enabled to develop our plans and purposes. Energy gives us force whereby we gather the courage to preserve in the lines decided on, bids us to put on a bold mien and go forth to do valiant battle against opposing circumstances. But it is enterprise that suggests ways and means to overcome difficulties that threaten to overwhelm us. It is enterprise that bids us explore entirely new fields, discovering expedients that will enable us to change what, by the force of circumstances, was fast becoming failure into a glorious victory, bringing us to wealth, position, and fame. It is to enterprise that we are indebted for those rich discoveries in scientific fields by which we decipher the records of past ages and unravel the secrets which nature surrounded with mystery, compelling them to serve us. It was enterprise that harnessed steam, teaching it to do our bidding, and brought the lightning down from the heavens to carry our thoughts to the uttermost parts of the earth. It is the spirit of enterprise driving curious minds to work in new directions that has given us all those useful and curious inventions, which have done so much to make this 19th century civilization to shine with so lustrous a light. In short, it is enterprise that lifts the man of but mediocre abilities and attainments into the foremost ranks of the successful ones. Enterprise is an inheritance and not an acquisition, but it can at the same time be improved by cultivation, the same as bodily strength or any mental faculty. He who would excel as a swimmer must often be in the water, and the gymnast does not spare himself long and fatiguing exertions. So of an enterprising spirit. Some men seem born with an overflow of this, while others possess it in a slight degree only. But if any would be known as enterprising men, they must not hesitate to show by their everyday actions that they rely upon themselves in cases of emergency, and the greater the necessity, the better means of surmounting it are constantly discovered. They must not hesitate to try plans because they are new, but if sober judgment can discover no objection to it, they must seize upon the very novelty of the plan as an inducement, and be only the more eager to put it to the test. There is no life so routine but that it constantly affords scope for the exercise of enterprising energy. The very fact that you are finding it routine and commonplace should at once set you to work to devise some new way to change this. Do not stand sighing, wishing, and waiting, but go to work with an energy and perseverance that will set every obstacle in the way of your success flying like leaves before a whirlwind. A weak and irresolute way of doing business will shipwreck your plans as readily as effects follow causes. You may have ambition enough to wish yourself on the topmost round of the ladder of success, but if you have not the requisite energy to commence and enterprise enough to push ahead even when you know you are off the beaten track, you will always remain at the bottom, or at least on the lower rounds. Providence has hidden a charm in difficult undertakings which is appreciated only by those who dare to grapple with them. But this can only be true when you, by your own exertions and the strength of your own self-reliance and enterprise, have achieved the results. Nothing can be more distasteful than to see men of apparently good abilities waiting for someone to come and help them over difficulties. Be your own helper. If a rock rises up before you, roll it along or climb over it. If you want money, earn it. If you want confidence, prove yourself worthy of it. Do not be content with doing what has been done. Surpass it. Deserve success, and it will come. The sun does not rise like a rocket or go down like a bullet fired from a gun. Slowly and surely it makes its rounds, and never tires. It is as easy to be a lead horse as a wheel horse. If the job be long, the pay will be greater. If the task be hard, the more competent you must be to do it. We must apportion our strength and exertions to the requisite tasks and duties. He who weakly shrinks from the struggle, who will offer no resistance, who will endure no labor or fatigue, can neither fulfill his own vocation nor contribute aught to the general welfare of mankind. The spirit of the times demands that all who would rise in life shrink not back from labor, but also demands that they exert themselves understandingly, that they spare no effort to master all the intricacies of the business or vocation in which they are engaged, that they be alert to discover new ways by which they may reach the desired goal easier than the old. that they bear in mind that sticking to the old ruts is only the right policy so long as no better way presents itself, and when that way is discovered, be not at all slow to improve it. If you do not, others more enterprising will rush forward to reap the profits it promises, and you will be left behind in the race. No matter what your position in life may be, or the conditions which hem you in, there will be a tide in your affairs, which, taken at its flood, leads on to fortune. But you must be ready to accept the chance. While you are hesitating and deliberating, the occasion goes by, and in most cases never to return again. Therefore be prompt to seize it as it flies. Cultivate as far as possible the spirit of enterprise, for on that in a great degree depends your success or failure. End of section 16. Recording by Ron Broach. Section 17 of the Golden Gems of Life. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recorded by Ron Broach. The Golden Gems of Life by Emory Adams Allen and S. C. Furgeson. Section 17. Energy. Energy is force of character, inward power. It imports such a concentration of the will upon the realization of an idea as to impel it onward over the next gigantic barrier, or to crush every opposing force that stands in the way of its triumph. Energy knows of nothing but success. It will not hearken to the voice of discouragement. It never yields its purpose. Though it may perish beneath an avalanche of difficulties, yet it dies contending for its ideal. There is, perhaps, no mistake of a young man more common than that of supposing that, in the pursuits of life, extraordinary talents are necessary to one who would achieve more than ordinary success. There is no greater genius than the genius of energy and industry. It wins the prizes of life, which appeared destined to fall to those brilliantly constituted minds who, to an artificial observer, seemed to be the favored sons of fortune. But they lacked energy, and in that want lacked all. Energy of temperament, with a moderate degree of wisdom, will carry a man farther than any amount of intellect without it. It gives him force, momentum. It is the active power of character, and, if combined with sagacity and self-possession, will enable a man to employ his power to the best advantage in all the affairs of life. Hence it is that men of mediocre power, but impelled by energy of purpose, have often been able to accomplish such extraordinary results. The men who have most powerfully influenced the world have not been so much men of genius as men of strong convictions and enduring capacity for work, impelled by irresistible energy and invincible determination. Energy of will, self-originating force, is the soul of every great character. Where it is, there is life. Where it is not, there is faintness, helplessness, and despondency. There is a proverb which says that the strong man and the waterfall channel their own path. The energetic leader of noble spirit not only wins a way for himself, but he carries others with him. His very act has a personal signification, indicating vigor, independence, and self-reliance, and unconsciously commands respect, admiration, and homage. Such intrepidity is the attribute of all great leaders of men. There is a difference between resolution and energy. Resolution is the purpose, energy is the quality, and it is possible to possess much resolution with comparatively very little energy. Energy implies a fixed, settled, unswerving purpose, but resolution may vary its inclination 1,000 ways and embrace 1,000 objects, keeping up, perhaps, an air of steadiness and determination, while in reality nothing may be accomplished. There is observable the same difference between resolution and energy as there is between kindness and goodness, kindness being displayed by occasional acts of goodwill, whilst goodness exists always by a principle of love. Do not make the mistake of confounding energy with rashness. Energy is Bucephalus, guided by the hand of an Alexander. Rashness is Mazeppa's fiery steed, unbridled and unrestrained, bearing its rider over hill and dale to probable destruction. The former is power guided by wisdom. The latter is power goaded into action by blind impulse. Energy, to reach its highest development, must be controlled by wisdom. Many men now pining under discouragement have expended energy sufficient for the highest success, but they have failed of their reward because they have not sought counsel at the lips of wisdom. Rash enterprises impetuously begun hurry them on to ruin. True energy is never the same, but the energy of many men is impulsive. It is today a destroying, roaring torrent. Yesterday it was a stagnant pool. An accidental circumstance will call out every power of their soul, and for a season they will excel themselves and startle their friends. But they speedily expend their force, and lapse into stupid somnolency, till aroused by some bugle blast of excitement. Such minds accomplish but little. They lose more in their slumbers than they gain in their fitful hours of action. The calm, steady energy of the snail, slow as are its movements, is better calculated to produce results than the spasmodic leaps of the hare. Hence, in the formation of character, it is of the utmost importance to cultivate a steady, uniform, unyielding energy. The quiet energy that works to accomplish is what rules the world. There is more energy shown in quietly doing your duty through years of patient toil than to rush with great clamor at the obstacles of life. Only to relinquish the attempt if success does not immediately crown the effort. The game of life is won less by brilliant strokes than by energetic yet cautious play. Energy of character has always a power to make energy in others. The zealous, energetic man unconsciously carries others along with him. His example is contagious and compels imitation. He exercises a sort of electric power which sends a thrill through every fiber, flows into the nature of those about him, and makes them throw out sparks of power. But such men are few, and for one man that appears on the stage of human affairs that can rule events, there are thousands who follow. The earnest men are so few in the world that their very earnestness becomes at once the badge of their nobility, and as the men in a crowd instinctively make room for one who seems to force his way through it, so mankind everywhere open their ranks to one who rushes valiantly toward some object lying beyond them. Man is but a feeble being, but he belittles his high estate unless he puts forth his exertion, and forms a commendable and heroic resolution not to permit life to pass away in trifles, but to accomplish something in spite of obstacles. At difficulties be not dismayed. We may magnify them by weakness and despondency, when a heroic spirit would have put them to flight. There are cobblestones in every road and pebbles in every path. All have cares, disappointments, and stumbling blocks. It were well to remember, though, that sobs and cries, groans and regrets are all of no avail, but that high resolves and courageous actions may with safety be relied on to do much to lighten life's load. He who never grappled with the emergencies of life knows not what powers live in the soul to repel the rude shocks of time and destiny, nor is he conscious how much he is blessed with a kindly faculty to blunt the edge of adverse circumstances. All traditions current among young men that certain great characters have wrought their greatness by an inspiration, as it were, grows out of a sad mistake. There is no inspiration so potent for good as the inspiration of energy. There are none who wrest such conquest from fame as those earnest, determined minds who reckon the value of every hour, and rely on their own strong arm to achieve their ambitious resolves. You cannot dream yourself into a character. You must hammer and forge yourself one. But remember, there is always room for a man of force, and he makes room for many. It is a Spanish proverb that he who loseth wealth loseth much. He who loseth a friend loseth more. But he who loseth energy loseth all. It is folly for a man or woman to sit down in mid-life discouraged. True, it is a severe test of character calmly to reflect that life has thus far proved a failure, but it does no good to abandon oneself to despair. With energy and God's blessing, it is possible that they may yet win a glorious victory. God in His wisdom has seen fit to ordain that life with all shall be a scene of labor. To make the most of it, it is necessary to make the aim high and noble, and energy unflagging. No matter how apparently solid the foundations on which we stand, it often happens that by the remission of labor and energy, poverty and contempt, disaster and defeat steal a march upon prosperity and honor, and overwhelm us with remorse and shame. It is the energy that makes the difference in men. It is the genius of persevering energy that carries so many men straight to the goal of success. It is energy that sheds the light of hope on pathways that had been lost save for that, and thus enables so many men and women to persevere therein. It is the energy that calls upon all, and calls upon you, to rouse yourself. Would you make a success of life? Would you acquire fortune or renown? It bids you to take heart and hope for the best. It bids you to walk in the paths of patience, to do with all your might what you have marked out as necessary to do. It bids you pursue it with resolution and vigor. A young man is, in the true sense of the word, the architect of his own fortune. Rely upon your own strength of body and soul. Remember that the man who wills it can go almost anywhere or do almost anything he determines to do. You must make yourself or come to nothing. You must win by your own exertions and not wait for someone to come to your assistance. Take for your stars self-reliance, faith, honesty, and industry. Keep at the helm, and above all, remember that the great art of commanding is to do a fair share of the work yourself. The greater the difficulty, the more the glory in surmounting it. Skillful pilots gain their reputation from storms and tempests. The soul of every great achievement is energy, but enervation and indolence sap its life, and doom the man to obscurity and ill success. Men of feeble action are accustomed to attribute their misfortune to what is termed ill luck. They envy the men who climb the ladder of eminence, and call them lucky men and men of peculiar opportunity. This is a vain and foolish imagination. Energy produces good fortune and success, while enervation breeds misfortune and ill luck. Fortune, success, fame, and position are never gained but by determinedly and bravely persevering in any course until the plans are finally accomplished. In short, you must carry a thing through if you want to be anybody or anything, no matter if it does cost you the pleasure of society, the thousand pearly gratifications of life. Stick to the thing and carry it through. Believe you were made for the matter, and no one else could do it. Put forth your whole energies. Be awake. Electrify yourself. Go forth to the task. Learn to carry it through, and you will be a hero. You will think better of yourself. Others will think better of you. The world in its very heart admires the stern, determined doer. It sees him in the best sights, the brightest objects, its richest treasures. Proceed with energy, then, in whatever you undertake. Consider yourself amply sufficient for the deed, and you will succeed. End of section 17. Recording by Ron Broach.